Every Stoic you have ever heard of. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, every word they wrote, every lesson they taught, every idea that found its way to you passed through one man first. His name was Panatius of Rhodes. And you have almost certainly never heard of him. He didn't write the most famous words. He didn't die the most dramatic death. He wasn't exiled or enslaved or forced to choose between his principles and his life. What he did was quieter than all of that. And more important, he took a philosophy that was dying in Greece, too demanding, too rigid, too focused on an ideal no human being could ever actually reach. And he carried it to Rome, the most powerful civilization on Earth. And in doing so, he didn't just save Stoicism, he gave it to the world. Panatius was born around 185 BC on the island of Rhodes, a prosperous cosmopolitan island in the Aegean Sea, known as a center of culture, trade, and learning. He came to Athens young and ambitious, studied under the greatest Stoic minds of his generation, absorbed the philosophy from its roots, and then he went to Rome. What he found there was not a city waiting for philosophy. It was a city that had just conquered the known world and had no idea what to do with the power it held. Rome had legions. Rome had laws. Rome had empire. What Rome didn't have was wisdom. Panatius found his way into the inner circle of Scipio Aemilianus, one of the greatest Roman generals of the age. The man who would go on to destroy Carthage, the most celebrated military mind of his era. And Scipio, who had everything a Roman could want, power, wealth, victory, reputation, was drawn to Panatius like a man drawn to water. Because Scipio understood something that most powerful men never do. Victory without wisdom is just controlled chaos. Panatius traveled with Scipio, ate with him, debated with him, sat with him in the aftermath of battles and helped him think through what all of it meant. He was not just a teacher, he was a companion to power, a man who stood at the center of the Roman world and used that position to plant seeds that would grow for 2,000 years. The Scipionic Circle, as historians came to call it, was the most influential intellectual gathering in Rome. Philosophers, historians, poets, generals, all of them orbiting Scipio, and at the center of their philosophical world, Panatius. He eventually returned to Athens and became the head of the Stoic school. He wrote, he taught, he refined, and his most important work, a treatise called On Duties, became the direct inspiration for Cicero's De Officiis, which became one of the most widely read philosophical texts in the history of Western civilization. Panatius didn't write the book that changed the world. He wrote the book that inspired the book that changed the world. A bridge, always a bridge, never the destination. Always the path that made the destination possible. So what did Panatius actually teach? He inherited a Stoicism that had a problem. The Stoics believed in the perfect sage, a human being who had achieved complete virtue, complete wisdom, complete rational control. A person who was never wrong, never swayed by passion, never less than fully virtuous in every moment. The perfect Stoic sage. There was only one problem. No one had ever met one. Chrysippus himself admitted it. The perfect sage was so rare, so vanishingly unlikely to exist, that the entire framework of Stoic ethics rested on an ideal that no actual human being could reach. Panatius looked at this and said, "This is not useful. A philosophy built around an impossible standard doesn't help real people live real lives. It just makes them feel like failures for being human." He shifted the focus, away from the perfect sage, toward the person making progress. He asked, not how do you become perfect, but how do you live well given who you actually are? And to answer that question, he introduced one of the most powerful ideas in the history of philosophy. The four personae. 4 masks, 4 roles, 4 layers of identity that every human being carries. The first persona, your universal nature. You are a human being. You share reason, language, and moral capacity with every other human being on Earth. This is the layer you share with everyone. The second persona, your individual character, your specific temperament, your unique talents, the things you are naturally drawn to, naturally gifted at, naturally inclined toward. This is the layer that makes you different from everyone else. The third persona, your circumstances. The family you were born into, the community you belong to, the social role life has given you. This is the layer you didn't fully choose, but must work with. The fourth persona, your chosen path. The deliberate decisions you have made about who you want to become, your profession, your commitments, your values in action. This is the layer you build yourself, Panaetius said. Virtue is not one thing for everyone. Virtue is living in alignment with all four of these layers simultaneously. Not performing someone else's version of a good life, not chasing an ideal that has nothing to do with your actual nature, but finding the version of virtue that fits who you specifically are, and living it completely. He said, if you are naturally quiet, don't try to lead loudly. Lead with depth and precision. If you are naturally bold, don't suppress it in the name of stoic calm. Channel it towards something worthy. The goal is not to become the same. The goal is to become fully, authentically yourself, in service of something larger than yourself. That is the Panaetian teaching, and it is 2,000 years ahead of its time. Here is what this means for you. Most people are living someone else's persona. They've been handed a definition of success, wealth, status, recognition, a particular kind of strength. And they're spending their entire lives trying to fit themselves into a shape that was never built for them. The Stoic ideal says, be rational, be unmoved, be strong. And most people hear that and try to become a version of Stoic that has nothing to do with their actual nature. The introvert tries to dominate rooms. The sensitive person tries to feel nothing. The creative mind tries to follow the rigid path, and they wonder why it doesn't work, why it feels hollow, why the discipline never quite takes. Panaetius says, you're not failing at Stoicism. You're failing at someone else's Stoicism. The question is not, how do I become the perfect sage? The question is, given who I actually am, my specific nature, my specific circumstances, my specific gifts, what does the best version of me actually look like? And then, am I living it? Because that is the work. Not performing a borrowed identity, building an authentic one. Know your second persona. What are you actually good at? Not what you've been told to be good at. Not what gets applause. What comes naturally, runs deep, and connects to something real in you. Build your fourth persona around that. Make your choices, your commitments, your path an expression of your actual nature, not a rebellion against it, not a suppression of it. Panaetius stood at the center of the most powerful civilization in history and told the most powerful men in the world, the greatest thing you can do is figure out who you actually are and become that completely. Rome listened, and Stoicism survived. He was the bridge. He always was. Born in Rhodes, educated in Athens, influential in Rome, never fully belonging to any one world, always connecting them. He carried a dying philosophy from one civilization to another. He stood beside the most powerful general of his age and talked about virtue and duty and the examined life. He softened the impossible edges of Stoicism so that real people with real flaws and real lives could actually use it. And then history moved on to the people he made possible. Cicero, Seneca, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius. Their names fill the libraries. Panaetius is in the footnotes. But every word they wrote passed through his hands first. Every idea that found its way to you crossed the bridge he built. He didn't need the credit. He needed the philosophy to survive. And it did. Because of him. Figure out who you are. Build something that outlasts you. And never, never wait for someone to notice. If this video found you at the right moment, go to the comments right now and write one thing: I will not break. That is not a message to me. That is a promise to yourself. And tell this family, which philosopher should wear the next mask? Drop the name below. If you're new here, This is what we do. Every week, one philosopher, one story, one lesson sharp enough to cut through everything the world throws at you. Subscribe, turn on notifications. Don't miss what's coming. Until next time, wear the mask.